Good morning, friends and fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the Morning Market Prep video for June 26, 2024. Well, yesterday was another very volatile day of price action as the diamonds and IWM reversed the surge on Monday, and we saw the SPY and the QQQ reverse the selling on Monday. So how about we take a look at what happened overnight? First off, if we take a look at Asian markets were mostly higher last night. Shanghai didn't make it back above 3,000, only coming up 22 points. But we saw green mostly across the board, except for Australia, who saw their inflation numbers come in higher than expected. In fact, an increase in inflation. If we take a look at European markets, we have a mix of European markets, but they have been trying to reverse a little bit of yesterday's selling. The selling was pretty strong yesterday in Europe, but we've got the DAX and the FTSE up slightly while the CAC is still lower this morning, and a lot of it has to do over this stabilization of chip makers and AI and big tech. If we take a look at U.S. futures this morning, U.S. futures also have a little bit of a mix. Dow futures are looking lower, while S&P and NASDAQ futures are once again stretching to the upside. If we take a look at oil stocks a little bit higher here today. If we take a look at XLE, we saw some of those oil producer stocks continuing to move up yesterday, even though oil end of the day is showing a little bit of weakness. If we take a look this morning, we've got oil up, however, 77 cents a barrel, and we've got Brent up 73 cents a barrel, and we are waiting for U.S. data on that in our oil numbers today. If we take a look at our natural gas this morning, it is slightly lower. If we take a look at UNG had a bit of a rough day yesterday with a little bit of volatility. Now this morning we risk here in natural gas kind of falling off this shelf here, so watch that carefully on natural gas. Taking a look at precious metals, gold had a rough day yesterday, bounced back up, and then ended up closing the day slightly lower. This morning we're gapping down here in gold, moving a little bit lower, and once again we're giving up some trend, and we'll have to watch this little shelf right here to see whether or not that holds a support or not. Dropping through there could be a bit of a problem. Looking at the US dollar this morning, you can see US dollar, let me move things out of the way here. I don't have an early morning print here on the US dollar, but I'm thinking it's moving up just a little bit this morning because I see bonds moving just a little bit higher. So keep an eye on that dollar, and that is of course going to affect the way these commodities react. Silver is just slightly higher here in the pre-market. Copper's down, platinum and palladium are just slightly higher. If we take a look at the cryptos here this morning, had a nice little rebound yesterday from the really rough sell-off on Monday, but Bitcoin is down this morning, $673 a coin right across the board in those cryptos. So we'll have to be pretty darn focused on where those are going. A lot of volatility in there as well. If we take a look at our bond rates here this morning, we have bond rates that have been moving slightly higher. Now the twos are hanging in there about the same at 4.73%. 10s moved up just slightly to 4.28%, and the 30s are up to 4.40%. So keep an eye on those this morning, maybe strengthening a little bit in the US dollar. So what does all that mean for today? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Wednesday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a peek at what we've got going on here in our index charts. If we take a look at the diamonds, you can see our diamonds. Well, we're showing just a little bit of pullback here, possible follow through from yesterday's selling, but I want you to notice in here, I don't think this is terrible at all. Notice 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 6 days to the upside in the move. We had one little day of rest in there. So a pullback like this really doesn't hurt all that much. We did break this downtrend here in the chart, although it was probably a kind of nasty rejection for anyone who jumped in there at the last minute on Monday, chasing some of those stocks that are not tech and getting a nasty reversal here. But if you take a look as we try to evaluate this chart, we've got some price support right in this area here. We did break down below this area here, leaving a bit of a bearish 3-day pattern here on the diamonds. But if we can hold this price support in here, and remember, holding a higher low after a downtrend break is really important to pay attention to. So we'll have to keep an eye on this. If the bears continue to push to the downside, you can see a breakdown below here may send us down into this price support area of the chart. We'll see those bears, see if they can push on through. If they go beyond that, I would look a little bit lower. There's a little bit more price support down in here. And then, of course, we're starting to look at this trend line and support levels down here if those bears were to really start pushing. And then if we look a little bit further out, well, then you have to also notice this bigger trend. We could come all the way back down to here and still find that bounce back to the upside. So keep an eye on those diamonds. If the bulls find inspiration, pretty easy to see where we might go. First thing we'll need to do is break the top of this big black candle. Then we'll look at this resistance here in the chart, see if we can punch through that. If we can punch through these two areas, then of course we're starting to look at areas up in here, and then the possibility of that breakout to new record highs if we get up into those zones. If we take a look at our SPY, there's just no way you can look at the SPY right now and see anything bearish, except for the fact that the majority of the stocks in the SPY have not been enjoying a rally. We have only had big tech doing all the lifting here, and that was the case yesterday, pushing us back up. Big tech doing most of the lifting here, and as you can see, holding nicely in this pattern above support and above trend. Now, if those bears were to find any inspiration at all today, well, then kind of keeping in mind that pulling back into here still doesn't hurt anything in that QQQ chart. Very bullish overall. And the only thing that I think is going to really create some uncertainty or some concern here is if we were to break that trend and support. And right now, there's no signs in the chart that that's even in the cards. Now, if we take a look on the bullish side, if those bulls continue to push here this morning, we might break through that resistance right in here. Look, it's not very strong resistance, only a little resistance. Then we're back up here testing all-time highs and blue sky above that on the SPY. QQQ, once again, no way you can look at this chart with a bearish eye. Extremely bullish. Big rebound yesterday in those big techs. NVIDIA leading the way. And as you can see, if the bears were to find inspiration today, then just to pull back into here, doesn't really hurt anything with that trend and support level as long as those hold. Concern would only be if we were to drop down below those areas, and then you might see some bearish activity really pick up. But for now, QQQ looks very, very strong. And if we take a look right here, pushing up much higher here, we're going to be testing these areas up in here and that possibility of a break of all-time highs and new record blue sky highs in the QQQ. If we look at IWM, we have a very different picture here. IWM producing a lower high, showing those that shooting star bearish candle here yesterday. That follow through today, possibly we're failing underneath this area of price resistance in the chart, showing lots of weakness here in IWM, and it is one of the few here in the market that is still below its 50-day moving average. One of the real problems IWM is having is we are not seeing a lot of encouragement in stocks other than the big tech giants, and obviously not much for big tech giants, really anything of big tech giants in the Russell. And so they're languishing here an awful lot and actually showing possible short here in the market. If the bears were to continue to push, well, we'll start looking for these consecutive levels to the downside push in here for that failure in the chart. If the bulls were to find inspiration, what we need to see is we need to see that reversal in here that breaks that resistance. Then we start pushing back up into these levels. But remember, we still have downtrends in those charts, so watch that closely. Let's take a look at our VIX. Our VIX popped up a little bit yesterday and then sold off at the end of the day. It really intensified in the selling here because we saw so much bullishness right at the end of the day, rushing into those tech giants. If you take a look here, we have come out from underneath that downtrend here in the chart, and we have this little tiny uptrend going on here in the chart. Now remember, again, one of my favorite patterns to is the reversal of a trend. So when we break that downtrend and then we pull back, we look for that opportunity that we could find some hold of that and then that reversal back up. Certainly nothing in the cards here this morning that's suggesting that's going to occur, but I would still be watching for that possibility if those bears find some kind of reason for inspiration. And remember, we have big data coming on Thursday and Friday, so we'll want to watch that carefully. A little bit of focus will start coming into that, and probably a little bit of nervousness will start playing into that hand here coming into today, so watch that carefully. We also have some pretty good earnings reports that could be interesting for the day to be watching. And then if we take a look at our T20s, our T2122 yesterday pulled back substantially. Remember, we were pushing up here toward that upper side. We pushed down pretty close here to that bullish reversal zone yesterday, and then the afternoon cut that bounce back, that little relief rally back up. But you can see here, if the bears were to find inspiration, we don't have all that far to go, come down here into that bullish reversal zone. So if there is something that inspires those bears, kind of keep an eye on that. If the bulls find inspiration today in some of the data and earnings, well, then keep an eye on this. We've opened up a very big opportunity to the upside, and a good surge could occur there. Keeping in mind right now we're well below this 50% area here in the chart, and this is an example of the fact that the majority of stocks are moving down. The vast majority of stocks are moving down. It's only those tech giants that are making everyone believe, man, this market is so bullish. And that is just not the case when you look at the internals of the market. Here's an example. If we take a look at T2108, the percentage of stocks above the 40-day moving average, again, sinking back down. Now, we broke some of this support level here in the chart, broke this little upside trend here, pushing this back lower. 33% of the stocks 33% of the stocks holding above their 40-day moving average. Not exactly a bullish case for the market. So just remember, we've got tech giants lifting this entire market to the upside and giving the impression that everything is bullish, but we're certainly not seeing that in the majority of the market. And then if we take a look at our T2107, the percentage of stocks above the 200-day also declined, breaking some support in here, and ended up finishing the day back down just below 50%. So we got just a few more stocks below their 50%, just a few more than 50% below their stock, their 200-day moving average, and just about 49%, I guess, above their 200-day moving average. So once again, not exactly a great signal for the market that, man, we are super bullish. If we take a look at one of the reasons that occurred, our T2101 showed us a sharp decline in market breadth yesterday. Even as those techs were really zooming to the upside, market breadth continued to decline yesterday, showing that weakness. We're down here about 19 handles, 18, 19 handles in T2101. We can still go lower, but certainly a little bit of concern that we're not picking up on any breadth here in the market as those tech giants continue to surge. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here for today. And our economic calendar, well, we've got a few things to be paying attention to. Let me slide that over and get it reset so we can see it all. What we've got going on here today, not big data so much, but maybe some market movers. We've got mortgage applications that will be coming in today. We've got new home sales. Consensus is suspecting that new home sales will increase to 650,000. Again, I wonder about these when we see consumer sentiment and consumer confidence lowering here in the market, that we get a surge back up in housing sales. But it's certainly possible, but that does raise some questions for me. Watch that closely. Then we're going to get the petroleum numbers here today, and that could obviously have substantial impacts on the movement of the oil sector. And then if we take a look past that, we've got bond auctions here to be paying attention to. So that's it for the day. But very quickly, everyone's going to be thinking about this: durable goods orders, GDP, international trade and good, jobless claims on Thursday. So be prepared for that. And remember, we've got that personal PCE number coming in here on Friday. So be prepared for some volatility around these numbers at the end of the week. Let's take a look at our earnings calendar here for today. In our earnings calendar, we've got some nice notables here to be paying attention to this morning and this afternoon. We've got General Mills reporting this morning. Obviously, a little bit of disappointment here in General Mills, pushing to the downside here in the pre-market. PAYX is another that reporting today, this morning. Not much movement here so far, so perhaps it hasn't reported just yet. Keep an eye on that. And we have UNF reporting this morning with a nice little pop here to the upside. So watch that one today. This afternoon, we'll be looking at AV. We'll be looking at CNXC. We've got the old Fuller Brush. We've got Levi. Levi Strauss reporting this afternoon. We're going to hear from Micron, which will be our most notable for the day. Keep an eye on Micron. MLKN will be in here. And then we're going to hear from WD. So keep an eye on these reports this afternoon. Could be very interesting, particularly with the tech-centric move of this market. Micron will be very important this afternoon. Let's take a look at a few stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if you could do me that favor, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube and also click those bell icons when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful, if you could do me that favor and then click that thumbs up button, leave that brief comment, that helps the channel to grow. Thank you so much to everyone who does take the time to do that. I truly, truly appreciate it. Now, as we take a look at these stocks that could be setting up, please keep in mind these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence. Be very, very careful in this market, and remembering that we have these big data reports coming. So make sure whatever you decide to do, you have a plan to protect yourself for the potential volatility that we could see coming into the end of this week. First off, let's take a look at a couple that I've placed alerts on that I think are setting up nicely. I mentioned NetApp yesterday. You can see NetApp pushed up yesterday, tried to pop that up there, didn't quite make it. This morning we're getting quite a little bit of volatility in here on NetApp. There's a gap down in the pre-market and now a nice push to the upside. This may pop that alert today. Keep an eye on NetApp. Looking pretty good here overall. Another one I really like is this stock here in CRM. CRM we'll want to be keeping an eye on. As you can see, pushing a resistance level in the chart. We've got this first higher low, and now we're resting in this nice tight consolidation. I'm waiting to see if that would pop and then possible gap fill coming in here to Salesforce. So keep an eye on CRM. You might also want to be keeping a close eye on Chipotle. Chipotle, this chart is all messed up here at the moment. We're waiting on TC2000 to adjust this chart, but a major decline in price, as you can see here this morning, with a 50-to-1 split here on CMG. That can always generate some interest and some potential buying. So keep a close eye on CMG today. Very interesting looking chart. Take a look at Walmart here. Walmart had a good little pullback here in that chart, but we found price support and we found trend, and yesterday we hammered off of those, hammering out that little bottom, and you can see that opportunity. Any follow through here today would provide a potential morning star bullish pattern here to the upside. Keep an eye on Walmart for that push back to the upside here. Very interesting chart. Of course, we got to talk about the tech giants here today. Take a look at Apple. Despite the fact that the EU is really coming at them hard and potentially charging them with antitrust practices, there was no selling here on Apple, and this nice little pullback in here sets up that higher low opportunity in the chart and that consolidating move to push on higher. Now, I would also say don't rule out that possibility that we'll make our way back to this trend before it does go, so make sure you set your stops properly. But nice pattern here. Google, whoops. There we go. Google really made a big move yesterday, stretching to the upside, pushing through after this big consolidating break. Very bullish chart, just piling in here as they push on higher here in Google. So I would keep an eye on Google and Alphabet. Meta also very bullish pattern in here yesterday with this resting consolidation pulling back to some support in here. And depending on how you draw this trend, I could redraw this trend real easily right through here, and you can see very, very bullish on this move and that possibility of popping up into this next area of price resistance, and even a pop through there is certainly possible. So keep an eye on Meta, really recovering here, showing lots and lots of strength in the market. Of course, you'll want to be paying attention to MU this afternoon. MU is going to be reporting earnings. Beautiful bullish setup in here, holding support, holding trend, and that possibility that this could take off to the upside. Now, got to have a little bit of a gamble in here, because if there was a disappointment here on MU, that could really hurt. But not something I would want to trade, but keep a close eye on that. Let's take a look at our financials here. Our financials, well, we shot up pretty strongly here on Monday and completely reversed that, seeing a little bit of pressure here this morning as those bonds move back up. Now, I see that possibility that we're running into some price resistance right in here, and that possibility of a little double top type pattern, but we really won't know that with this downtrend break unless we start to break this back down. So watch this area right in here. We could also find some price support in this area, and that opportunity that could push back up. Be kind of careful in here on these. We're hearing more and more stories about trouble at the banks with rates holding up here higher for longer, adding into some trouble here in those. So watch that. And then if we take a look at energy, our XLE, as you can see here, breaking through this downtrend here in the chart. I'd keep an eye on this. If we break that downtrend, if we were to hold this higher low, and remember, we're going to get numbers on petroleum here today. If they are supportive of price, we could see that hold that higher low and start pushing on higher here in energy. And if we take a look at some of those stocks in the sector, some nice moves. ExxonMobil breaking through the downtrend, ConocoPhillips making that nice breakthrough here. Any rest or pullback would set up an opportunity there on Conoco. You can see we've got some good support areas here that could hold that chart on any rest or pullback. So quite a few looking good here. Occidental holding up nicely as well. We look at Marathon looking good, breaking that downtrend back to the upside. So keep a close eye on those stocks. Quite a few things happening there. Take a look at CRWD. CRWD still holding in here very strong, well above support here in the chart. We pulled back, consolidated a bit in here, and now we're seeing those bulls trying to push. Watch for a potential break here in CRWD. So lots going on here today. We also Rivian secured funding from Volkswagen, and a huge move overnight here in Rivian, surging to the upside after securing that that funding. So big change here in Rivian. I would keep an eye on that. And then FedEx, a big change here in FedEx on their earnings report. Beat on earnings. It's mostly cost cutting that made the difference here for them, but a big surge to the upside here on that. You can see we'll be testing and seeing whether or not we can hold some of these resistance levels up here of this recent high. Watch that closely today. Big surge. Now that may help out our transports here. Our transport sector has been very weak. In the old Dow theory, unless transports are moving, there's a problem here. And you can see trying to break that downtrend, break through some resistance, and FedEx is going to help that today. So watch that closely here on IYT. So there's a few things for you to be paying attention to today, a few stocks that I think are worthy of being on a list. I want to wish you guys a fantastic day. I want to wish you great results in your trading. Thank you so much for listening and being here, supporting the channel. Truly appreciate it. And I want to wish you all the very best today. Take care, my friends.